What's doing, everybody? Today is Tuesday, December 9th. The January 6th pipe bomber story is blowing up. Jasmine Crockett is now running for U.S. Senate. Tim Pool explodes on Candace Owens. And my man Jim Pfaff from the Conservative Caucus joins me on the show. I'm Alec Lace. This is the Alec Lace Show.
The American family is under attack. Parents are the underdog of this nation. Your children are being indoctrinated. That's right. Your children. They do not belong to the state. They do not belong to the school system. They belong to you, the parents, as a blessing from God our Father. So let's preserve, protect, and fight for the American family together. You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, welcome everybody to the Alec Lace Show. Happy and honored, as always, to be here with you guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching the broadcast as it streams live on Rumble, please get down there, hit the share button. Let's get as many people into the live broadcast as possible. A lot to cover today. I got my friend Jim Pfaff from the Conservative Caucus joining me in just a little bit. We're going to get into so many things that are happening, especially with the Minneapolis mayor, that Jacob Fry, and also the incumbent mayor or the incoming mayor, Zohran Mamdani, into New York, both heavily talking about how they are not going to work with ICE. It's crazy what is going on and what we're seeing. But let me go start with this here, with the January 6th pipe bomber story that is completely blowing up. First of all, let's just say this. Had this guy, Brian Cole Jr., been a MAGA guy, they would have arrested this guy back in the beginning of this, in January of 2021. He would have been arrested within weeks. They would have got this guy. We know that. But the Democrats trying their hardest, especially the influencers, trying their hardest to make it seem as if this guy might have been MAGA, he was anti-Trump. They're even saying like, maybe it was Trump's rhetoric that turned him on when he said, go fight for your country. The problem is this guy bought all this bomb-making material prior to any of that even happening. So that story doesn't make any sense. Everything points to this being a setup. But the latest that we have here, a January Select Committee pipe bomber, FBI investigation, the story almost lines up exactly with the affidavit that we have for Brian Cole Jr. So the FBI report that we got, it looks like they had every single piece. Joe Biden's FBI identified the pipe bomber. It seems like if you read this report, they had all the things figured out except the guy's name. It's like there's no way they didn't identify him. If you look, they had the credit cards. They tracked everything, his movement. They had him completely identified. They knew who he was because how would they know which credit card to go and check? They had the credit card that this guy was buying all this bomb explosive material, from 2019 all the way up through 2021. So why did they sit on it? Why did they not make a move? Well, it seems obvious that this guy was going to blow up, the pipe bomber would blow up the narrative that they were setting for this insurrection that never took place. Now, it's 1,000% that they knew who this pipe bomber was. The only real question is, were they involved in setting this guy up? I mean, that's really the main question here. But as we dig further into who the hell this guy really is, like by all accounts, now you had the report that came out that he thought the election was rigged, or he thought Trump was the election was phony, or whatever it was. They tried to make it sound. Anonymous sources say. That was the story that CNN went with, right? The story, CNN, who has Jake Tapper, who told you that a black suspect who was clearly white, these are the same people. Like, they lie, and all they want to do is try to throw shade on the story, get the first thing out there. I mean, that's what's most important to them. So here we go with this now. CNN says, he was upset about the election. He thought the outcome was rigged, or, whatever it was. Now you find out from the people in his family, like his grandma, that said she was surprised. Like, he had no affiliation with any political party. He never voted. He never talked about politics. She was surprised to hear anything about any of this. We also find out that this guy was into My Little Pony. I mean, he was a My Little Pony guy, like obsessed with it, apparently. That's what we're hearing. So is this guy, it doesn't seem like he's wrapped too tight. I mean, that's what it seems like. It seems like they said he was like an autistic kid or a loner kid who kept to himself in his room. He didn't socialize. He didn't go out. So he decides then to make 2 pipe bombs, leave one at the RNC and the DNC. They don't go off. It doesn't work, and he just gives up on his life as an anarchist. I mean, something about this is way off. So that, like, did they put this guy up to it is the number one question. That would be the real smoking gun. Obviously, they identified him. If you look at the FBI report and compare it to the affidavit that we have on Brian Cole Jr., it's obvious they knew who the guy was. They had the suspect. Why did they not bring him forward? Now, the kid's family, the father owns like a bail bondsman thing. He's represented by Ben Crump, the big BLM lawyer. There's ties in somewhere to this guy. And I would have to put it to you this way and just say, the only real thing that matters here was not the fact that the FBI knew who he was and decided, hey, let's bury this because it's going to hurt our insurrection narrative that we're trying to push hard right now so we can get something against Trump and put all his supporters in prison. So let's quiet this down. Put this in the trash bin over there or hide this back there. And let's just, say, hey, we can't find this guy. The FBI, we can't, we got stumped by this, My Little Pony lover. I don't believe that. I believe that they might have had a hand in setting this thing up. That's how deep I think that this really would go. Because other than that, the fact that this kid did this on his own doesn't make any sense. If he is who they're telling us that he is. It seems very out of character that this kid would do something like this. And then stop. He's this anarchist, and then he strikes once, it doesn't work, and he hides, he evades the FBI for 5 years, and he never strikes again. This story needs to be told in its entirety because, and of course, the thing we're going to keep coming back to here is, will anyone ever pay the price for this? Will the FBI under Joe Biden, will any of these people that were in charge of the investigation, will any of them do any time? Will we find out, hey, you covered this up, you're going to prison? I mean, do we get any of that? I mean, that's what we really want to see because this January 6th narrative was brutal for us. It was brutal for us. They used this insurrection narrative to paint all Trump supporters as insurrectionists. They went on with this for years. They threw everybody in jail over it. They were hunting down grandmas at their home and putting them in jail, political prisoners for this stuff. The whole thing was a setup, man. The whole thing was a setup, and I would go as far as to believe that they set this kid up to do this. I mean, I don't see how. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it could be true that this kid just all of a sudden got this idea to create 2 pipe bombs, leave them at the RNC, the DNC, and they didn't go off, and he just gave up his life as an anarchist and went back to his My Little Pony DVDs. I don't think so. I think they had to be involved in this. We need a lot more answers, but when we have this, again, the FBI report compared to the affidavit, it looks like they had every single thing in place. That nothing, just like Kash Patel had said, we didn't get any new information. We didn't get any new details. We looked at what they had here. Oh, look, here's what it is. Oh, here's the guy. You had this the whole time. They had the paperwork that was right there. They had the whole investigation. So why didn't they pull the trigger? They didn't want to pull the trigger because it would have hurt the narrative. The story needs to be told in its entirety. All right, so what's your take on that? Next thing I want to hit on is Jasmine Crockett now is running for Senate. Now, this, I don't know. I know that there was the redistricting that happened in Texas where I believe, I should ask Jim Pfaff about this when he comes on. He'll know better than me. I think we got like 5 seats picked up in Texas because of the redistricting. But I do believe that Jasmine Crockett's district was moved. So she would be in a different district down there in Texas than she was. And I guess maybe the polling didn't look as good for her as it did if she runs for Senate. Something had to give this girl an idea that she has a chance to become a senator in Texas, which is wild because you think of Texas, you think of it as, really a red state. And Jasmine Crockett is one of the far-left lunatics that you have down there in the House. So she's going to vacate that seat, which is good. It gets her out of the House. And also, if she loses this election, she's out of Washington. which would be great to see. Now, it's John Cornyn's seat. Now, John Cornyn, for all intents and purposes, I believe, is a rhino. This is a guy that's got 24 years in the Senate. Is he running for re-election? I guess he is. Is he? I know the other people that are running against him are Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, and also Wesley Hunt, the congressman, the GOP congressman. So I don't know who wins in that primary from the Republican side. I know that John Cornyn, he's one of these guys that, he came out with some gun laws, like gun safety laws. That was a big thing that people had a problem with, myself included. That was after the Uvalde shooting or whatever it was. He also is one of these guys, big Ukraine aid guy. Let's give a ton of money to Ukraine. So there's a lot not to like about John Cornyn and who he is. But this Jasmine Crockett is a loony bird. I mean, there's no doubt about that. She comes in from the whole act, the whole ghetto trash act that she puts on in Congress. She's someone who says she self-admits that she went into her first position as whatever it was, attorney, whatever it was. She says, I went in and said, I should get this job because I'm black. I mean, that's her type of spiel. She's a pretender. Benny Johnson did a whole profile on where she's from. She tries to make it sound like she's from the hood. She's from the ghetto. She talks with the vernacular. I'm a ghetto, Crockett. But when we look into her history, she went to a high school that costs $35,000 a year. It's an elite private high school. She comes from a well-to-do neighborhood. This is not the character that you see on social media, not the character you see in the house when she's there disgracing herself in the people's house. So what happens with Jasmine Crockett? The best thing that could happen here is that we get her completely out of Washington. That's what looks like the path is right here. So, but now, again, we have a weak senator there as far as John Cornyn. Well, he votes mostly, I would say, with Trump, I guess. But it's the stuff like, the Second Amendment stuff and the Ukraine voting and stuff like that. I don't know. Not the biggest fan of John Cornyn. I would like to see Ken Paxton or Wesley Hunt be the guy to go. I would love to see Wesley Hunt go against Jasmine Crockett because I think he would obliterate her in a debate. I've had Wesley Hunt on the show. I got to get him back on the show now that he's put his hat in the ring there for Senate. But I think he is somebody, and you love the way that he approaches it, Wesley Hunt. He is the guy that says, hey, look, I want to be judged based on the content of my character, not based on the content, not the color of my skin. I mean, he is that guy. He's a veteran. He's an all-around American guy, I would say. And I think that he has the right approach to it. And I would love to see him and Jasmine Crockett in a debate. I think he buries her hands down. So what happens with that seat? What happens with her House seat now? Is that possible for the Republicans to pick up a seat there? I know the district is very blue, but now that the redistricting happening, it opened it up wider. So hopefully, maybe we can make a play in there and get that seat. Another thing I should hit Jim Pfaff on that. But anyway, let's get to this here. Tim Pool went absolutely off on Candace Owens. Now, Candace Owens has been going viral every single day since Charlie Kirk's assassination. She has turned her whole platform. She kind of dropped Bridget Macaron like a wet towel, right? Her big thing prior to the Charlie Kirk assassination was that Bridget Macaron is a man. Like that was her whole thing, right? The president of France, whatever his name is, Macaroni, and his wife, which is a weird story anyway. She's like 30 years older than the guy. She knew him since he was like 10 or whatever it was. It's some crazy story. Now they're married. She looks manly. But anyway, Candace Owens dedicated her whole program to this. She's getting sued by the French government or something like that. Anyway, she has totally shifted her entire her whole show has been on Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories. I mean, and Tim Pool has had enough, and he went off. I'm going to play a clip in just a second here, but it is, and I've said this before. It's so sad to see what has happened in the wake of Charlie Kirk. Now, the people who were immediately cheering for Charlie Kirk's assassination, they were gloating about it on social media by the thousands of people that were so happy to see it. They are loving what they are seeing right now. They are absolutely loving what they are seeing in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination. It's not about Charlie Kirk and his message or anything. It's all about the conspiracy theories, and it's been nonstop since the beginning of it. we had to go from, he was wearing a bulletproof vest. The bullet deflected off the vest and hit his neck. Okay, that went out the window. Then we had the Magic Mike theory. Oh, he was wearing his microphone. The microphone exploded, and it shot him through the microphone on the other side. We went through that theory. We're going through right now. Egyptian planes were there. Candace Owens. Oh, there was Egyptian planes that were there. It was Israel that did it. It's Turning Point USA that did it. It was Erica Kirk herself that was involved in it. I mean, Candace Owens has gone off the deep end on all of this stuff, and it sucks because it's taken away from the effect of Charlie Kirk that he had on the youth in this country and on the movement and just on his whole narrative. Candace Owens has captured the whole narrative. I mean, and you know what? She's making a bundle of money on it. Every video she does on it on YouTube is going super viral. I mean, super viral. She's getting millions of views on this stuff. And Tim Pool had enough of this, so he went off on it. Here's a piece of language beware here, personal, or what do you call it, explicit language warning. Here you go.
Candace Owens is a fucking evil scumbag. She is a degenerate cunt. She is burning everything down, and she's gloating and smiling while she does it. And you know what you fucking told me? She has no security. She doesn't fucking deal with the shit we have to deal with. She's a piece of shit. She's making everyone else suffer. And all of these fucking conservatives out there that send me these fucking messages have no fucking balls to call her out. More and more people have started doing it. They send me these fucking messages. Good for you, Tim. Good for you, Tim. I wasn't the first person to do it. I'm not going to take credit for that. But don't fucking DM me like I did something for you as you fucking cower, scared that she'll put you on her thumbnail and claim you benefited from Charlie Kirk's assassination, which he's doing to me right fucking now.
Yeah,
I'm fucking done with these people.
She has security, just not on the level of you.
Oh, yeah, the one fat guy you mentioned with no wall and no barrier in a suburban neighborhood with neighbors. She doesn't give two fucking shits. No one's out for her. She's lying about all of this. You told me you went to her house and she's got a 4-foot wall and one fat guy, and she doesn't give a shit about her security. Meanwhile, I get bullets fired at my fucking property, and I have to go live in the middle of nowhere. And I got fucking strangers coming up to my house in Maryland, breaking in. I got people showing up and beating up the residents who try to live there. How the fuck am I even supposed to sell this property? And, you know, it's all lies. It's all hypocrisy. And it is for the purpose of making money. And she does not live the way other people live. And she claims she liked Charlie. She loved Charlie. And she is burning everything down that he built because she is evil. She is evil. And I'll say it again. This conservative movement is fractured. It's fried, whatever it is. Okay? Republicans are on track to lose the midterms. They were actually trending the other direction until Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Yeah.
And this is the point, isn't it? The most effective political assassination in history. And thanks to the likes of the vile cunt Candace Owens, she has turned Turning Point into the perpetrators of the crime that was against them. I don't get paid by any of these people. I'm not on good terms necessarily with Turning Point USA. They didn't invite me to their stupid event. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. They invited me back after I started criticizing Candace. I'm not going to your event. I'm over all of this shit. The last thing that I need to deal with is a bunch of cowards in conservative media refusing to stand up to her. Megyn Kelly, come on. I appreciate the kind words, but come on. Such fucking pathetic bullshit. You know, and I get people saying, Tim, you know, thank you so much for talking about it. I don't care. I'm not doing a favor for anybody. I'm not doing this to benefit anybody. Nobody's paying me. There's no fucking Russia. There's no fucking Israel. There's just me sticking my neck out and then risking dying for what? A bunch of cowards that don't want to stand up to protect themselves? People like fucking Candace Owens?
I couldn't believe.
And I hear Tim Pool's frustration there. I mean, it is just a complete shame what has happened here. And the problem is, too, is it takes away from the fact of asking any of these legitimate questions about what happened, because a lot of things don't make any sense with the Charlie Kirk assassination. But now if you try to ask any questions, you're going to tie yourself into Candace Owens. Oh, you're like Candace Owens now. Or, you know, it just sucks. And meanwhile, no one's focusing on Tyler Robinson. So is he like completely, okay, Tyler Robinson's completely innocent. They got the wrong guy. No, it seems like everything leads to Tyler Robinson. And the problem is now is that is the conspiracy theory. If you believe it was Tyler Robinson who did it, oh, you believe the FBI story? Oh, yeah, you might as well think Oswald killed Kennedy. They lump everything into that now. Well, yeah, my question, my number one question is, why is the kid's family the one that turned him in? Why did the father turn this kid in if he didn't believe his son did it? Why is the father of this kid not on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC every single freaking day proclaiming his son's innocence? Why is he not doing that? If it was totally set up and this kid had nothing to do with it. Now, there's the theory. Did he have something to do with it? And was there other people involved? I'm open to that theory. I believe there was other people involved. Maybe it was his transgender furry friend, the Lance Twig guy. Was he involved in it? Yes, I think I'm very more concerned too with that guy that said that he did it, right? The bald-headed guy. Now his name drops from my head here a little bit. See, we should know his name a little bit. George Zinn, I think his name was. What was the story with that guy? How is he tied into this? He's an old dude. He's at a young person's Gen Z rally at a college. What is he doing there? Well, who is this guy? And he's a pedophile to boot. I mean, what's the story with this guy? Right away, he knows that this shooting just happened. He jumps up. Oh, I know. I did it. I'm going to take away the resources from the shooter. Like, something's not right with that guy. So there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of legitimate questions about what happened to Charlie Kirk. And we can't lose sight of the fact that the left absolutely exploded with applause and laughter and celebration after this happened. But all that is going away now because the number one focus has been on Candace Owens accusing Turning Point USA of pulling the trigger. And then she shifted her narrative every time, she gets caught. Like, she just keeps shifting the narrative. There was some Egyptian planes that were there. I don't know. It's wild to watch. So it just seems like and then, it just seems like what is happening here with the conservative side, conservative media, podcasters or influencers is wild. It's wild right now. And also, too, you just had Nick Fuentes on with Piers Morgan. I know you guys have seen clips, at least, of it. This thing went super viral, too. Nick Fuentes is going on all these shows, but gaining a lot more popularity because he keeps burying these people that have him on because he cuts them off at the knees. And it's almost like, and I'm going to bring Jim Pfaff on here in just a second now. But what's happening with Nick Fuentes is that he goes into an interview like something like Piers Morgan. And it reminds me, if you've ever seen the movie 8 Mile, right, with Eminem, if you've ever seen that movie, the climax of that movie, Eminem's doing a rap battle, right? He's in a rap battle with this other rapper. And he has to go first. So Eminem, basically it's just like a talk shit marathon is what it is. Like, I'm going to talk shit about you, and then you're going to talk shit about me, but we do it in a rap format, right? So Eminem gets to go first. So what Eminem does is he talks all the stuff smack about himself, that he's a white trash, that his girlfriend cheated on him, that he lives home with his mom. He cuts up on himself completely. And then at the end says, okay, now tell these people something they don't know about me. He cuts the guy's whole argument off. And then the guy has like nothing. He's like, what am I going to say now? He just said everything. Nick Fuentes does this when he goes into these interviews. He cuts them off at the knees because he's like, yeah. He talks about his racism. He talks about his Jewish, everything they try to throw at him. He says, yeah, that's right. That's who I am. He says, yeah, I'm racist. I'm this, I'm that. He takes all that away from them. And then it's like, okay, now what? Are we going to discuss these issues? They never get to the discussing the issues point of it because they're so busy trying to convince you of what he already admits to being. And it's like, he does the same thing in every one of these interviews, and they never change the tactic. They keep doing it the same thing. It's wild to watch what's going on with that. But that's what I feel about, how Nick Fuentes is able to really hold his own or win in these debates or these interviews that he's doing. And it's like everyone thinks they're going to get the big gotcha, but the minute he gets there, he takes the gotcha out of the question because he already gives it to you. And so now you look like an idiot now trying to interview him. But anyway, that's part of what's going on right now with conservative media is just all over the place. It's not focused. It seems like more of a distraction, and it's a lot of people that are anti-Trump, right? Okay, so Candace Owens is off the Trump train. Nick Fuentes is off the Trump train. Tucker Carlson is off the Trump train. Is Megyn Kelly off the Trump train? I don't know. I don't know where she's going or what direction she's going in. But it just seems like a lot of it is in disarray right now. So the voice of Charlie Kirk is so needed right now. And unfortunately, even who he was and what he's left behind is all being tainted right now by what is happening. So very sad to see. What's your take on the whole thing? Get a comment down below. Let's do this now. We're going to bring in my friend Jim Pfaff from the Conservative Caucus. We're going to talk about what's going on with this Minneapolis mayor, the New York City mayor, fighting against ICE, more of this nonsense. Let's bring Jim Pfaff on the show.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I'm at the White House with my dad, and you're watching The Alec Lace Show.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, let's do it. Joining me now, Jim Pfaff. Welcome back to the Alec Lace Show.
Good to see you, Alec.
Always a pleasure. Before I had you on here, I was talking a little bit about the Jasmine Crockett now throwing her hat in the ring. I think the best case scenario for us that happens is, she's out of the House now, but if she loses the race to the Senate, she's out of Washington. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? But what's your take on her running for the Senate here?
Yeah, I mean, the angels in heaven will be singing, and the reason I say that, both partly jokingly, but maybe even very realistically, is, you look at the outrageous evil that has been fomenting in Washington, D.C. for some time, mostly on the Democrat side, frankly, a few Republicans too over time. But that spiritual problem is a bad one because these people have this idea that what they do in Washington, D.C. matters. Then they want it to matter for their own personal gain and benefit. And then, worse than that, and in Jasmine Crockett's case, she's committed to an ideology that is un-American, really anti-American, not based upon the realities of free markets or individual liberty. These people, they hate the Constitution, they hate the Bill of Rights, except when it benefits them for a moment politically, then they abandon it immediately once they get more power. So anyway, she epitomizes that problem. Plus, put her kind of in the Ilhan Omar camp as well, too. You look at the corruption taking place in Minnesota. She's of that same ilk. I'm not connecting her directly to that corruption, but that's the same kind of attitude that's arrogant. I get to do what I want. And by the way, taxpayers, you need to pay me to do it. Attitude that is really destroyed much of what we do in Washington.
Well, what happens? There's no question about that. What happens with her seat now? I mean, I know that there was a redistricting that happened down there in Texas. I think we picked up 5 spots, maybe. But her district expanded. Do we have a crack at that, or is it still going to be a heavily blue area even with the expansion?
Well, part of the reason she's making the decision is it becomes pretty red. Now let's keep in mind. Although I think this redistricting effort is net positive for the GOP. These are based on 2024 numbers, and those have been shifting around a little bit lately. I think this is one of the big reasons Donald Trump has said he's going to hit the road and try to so-called go on the ballot, which I endorse and I want him to do, tell the economic message, talk up candidates, all that sort of thing, talk up what the hope for the future is. But that dynamic from 2024 is not exactly the same right now because of what people are perceiving is happening in Washington, D.C. So Republicans have a lot of work to do to bring this in, but that's a long way to answer, yes, her district becomes far more red than it was beforehand, which is one of the reasons why she's deciding to run for Congress, because the Supreme Court decision happened and it ain't going to change.
Yes. And also, too, it's just historically, and Trump usually points this out, historically, the president usually loses in the midterms. It usually shifts back the other way. Kalishi, the marketplace or Poly Market, whatever it is, has this at like 79% chance that the Democrats take the House, which I think is why right now they need to be. And I was just down there in D.C. last week talking to them in the Republican Study Committee. And I'm trying to tell these guys, all of the lawmakers I spoke, like the clock's running out here. Like there's got to be a sense of urgency to start codifying some of Trump's stuff, get the election integrity. Like if we don't move now within this last year, if we do go down in flames in 26 with the House, that's the end of the Trump's presidency of getting anything accomplished.
Well, listen, that Democrats feel like, whether it's right or not, feel like they've got an edge when Chuck Schumer goes up on the floor of the Senate and talks down Republicans. Like he's really quiet otherwise. So today, or maybe it was yesterday, he went on the floor saying Republicans can't even figure out what to do on health care. You got one group doing this, one group. To be candid, that's right. I mean, I have to agree with him on that. This is the problem. This is the potential problem for 2026. Donald Trump's not our problem. He's got it figured out, and he makes his mistakes, but they're very rare and few, and they're not very bad. Republicans make lots of mistakes. One of the big ones they're making right now is they need to put a dang reconciliation bill on the floor. They need to change Obamacare through that reconciliation bill. Remember, that's exactly how Obamacare got passed to begin with. It was through reconciliation. So just yank the whole thing out. Tell a parliamentarian to go pound sand, because it's just the Republican floor members that decide it. Get a bill through that actually entirely strips Obamacare away, goes back to the system we had before, imperfect though it was, far superior.
Yes.
Andy Biggs has a bill that does exactly that right now. Andy Biggs from Arizona. So that needs to happen. I mean, this is where they can have big wins. Everyone knows that Obamacare sucks. They're not going to be able to extend these Obamacare subsidies because that bloats the budget out the wall, and it doesn't fix the main core of the problem that I think American people are most worried about. Not give me money to pay for my health care. Just stop making it so expensive. That's what they're looking for.
Yes.
So I think a repeal of Obamacare would get there. And by the way, amongst other things, this next reconciliation package should be a fabulous opportunity to implement a lot of the EOs that Donald Trump signed so far. So take advantage of it. Tell the parliamentarian to go pound sand, get the job done.
I agree, and it may be their last chance to do this. So I mean, I got to get. And I agree that we didn't. Medical care is a big problem here. I mean, it is a mess. But whatever we were at before Obamacare, you're right. If we could just repeal it, get it out of the way completely, and go back to what it was prior. It's just so many people, myself included, everyone paid the price for this.
Well, and by the way, Alec, let me throw in here. I might have told this story on your show before, but I was sitting outside the Capitol. This was back in like 2012 or 13 with a friend talking about Obamacare. And there were a couple of young Democrat staffers there who were blown away when I told them the $5,000 deductible for my family of four that I'm paying, well over $500-600 then, $500 or $600 a month for. That just a few years prior, I was paying about $350 a month for a family of four, and my deductible was $500 total for the family. Like I could make it $1,000 if I wanted to save a little money. Like they don't even they knew back then how bad it is. It's gotten much worse now. If I want to get coverage this year on the marketplace, I have to take a $10,500 deductible, and I've got to pay nearly $1,000 a month. It's an outrage.
Yeah, unbelievable. So many people got trapped into this thing, and it's a mess. And the problem is too. I know that like there seems to be no clear-cut way on how to do this entire healthcare going forward. But this was not the answer, obviously. The way that they did, and they made it sound like it's Obama's whole legacy. When they say, "Oh, it was Obama's," that's his whole accomplishment, and it sucked. Let me go back into what's going on. Talk about D.C. The D.C. police chief just resigned. Now, this was this idiot that went up there, didn't even know what the chain of command went. So the chain of command. What's that mean? Like she had no clue what she was doing, in way over her head, but also tied to a little bit of corruption herself there. So what's your take on the police chief stepping down?
Well, it's good news for people in D.C., I can tell you that. And keep in mind that a lot of the problems that police department was having was due precisely to her policies and to Muriel Bowser, the current mayor's policies. When I was living in the district, or at least part living. I've never fully lived in the district. I keep my home in Indiana. But I had a place in the district in 2011, 12, 13. I have to tell you, the police department was doing a fantastic job. There was crime in the city. Of course, there are places you need to be careful of. But if you went across the river to Anacostia, for example, which is the worst crime area of that city, it was actually relatively safe to go there in 2011, 12, 13, 14. It's not now. It's gotten real bad again. And all of this has happened since Muriel Bowser became mayor and because of a DEI hire on the police force. There are a lot of police officers in the DC police force who are really fantastic police officers. I observed this. I was watching them go and take care of things. And that's really changed because they've had all the power taken away from them. It's good news. I think a lot of the officers there are going to feel much better about it. They already feel better about what Donald Trump has done to help support what they're trying to do, that's evidenced by the police union are endorsing everything that Donald Trump's doing. That's going to give them more relief. Hopefully they get a better mayor now that Muriel Bowser's not gonna run again, and maybe there's an opportunity to embed. I mean, I think we need to get rid of DC home rule, frankly. But until we do, maybe there's an opportunity to get someone better in there that would do a better job.
And the whole district of DC is so blue. Like it's amazing how it's always been that way. And then people that live there, even the ones that are diehard Democrats, they have to feel the sense of the change when they're living with all this crime that, like Trump says, can't go out at night, can't go here, and then you bring in the National Guard, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I can go out. No matter which way that you're voting, you have to be able, as a family person, you got to see a little bit like, oh, thank God that they have them here. I mean, when it comes to the safety of your family, no matter what side of the aisle, you want protection, you want your police to be able to be there to protect you.
Yeah, and listen, the National Guard hadn't needed to go to all of DC proper because not everywhere is bad. You've got Columbia Heights, you've got Northeast and Southeast and extreme Southeast DC where you have problems, and then obviously just downtown, where you've got people visiting. Those areas are being covered very well, and you hadn't gotten rid of all the crime. It's not like it's a perfectly peaceful place, but it is vastly superior to what it's been. And there's no doubt Democrats cannot argue that this is not working. It is working very, very well.
And the other problem, Jim, I wanted to get your take on here, too, is we just had Ma'am Danny yesterday, the guy coming into New York City, telling illegals to stand up to ICE. And to not cooperate with ICE. You have Mayor Frey or Fry, whoever you say his name there in Minneapolis, who says openly just yesterday, we will not work with ICE. They're pushing back. Now, again, the rhetoric against ICE has been responsible for an uptick in 1,000% of attacks against ICE. We've seen one guy take a shot at the ICE officers. But you're having these Democrat mayors in two of these cities openly saying they're not going to support ICE or work with them or nothing like that. And that's going to send a terrible message to the people there as ICE tries to do their job. And it's just going to put their lives in danger and the illegals in danger.
Well, it's a consistent policy with these people. They hate law enforcement. They literally hate them. By the way, don't forget, as both of these mayors, Mamdani and Fry, are saying they're not going to support ICE, they're also telling their local police departments, we're not supporting you either, particularly in New York City, where Mamdani has put a strict order out, or is about to put a strict order out, that the NYPD cannot do anything to help ICE. This is a change from his predecessor, who was making some and who was a police officer himself. Adams was a police officer. He understood the police. I mean, I'm not trying to endorse him. He had his obviously liberal negatives, but he did kind of get this thing and was working well with Tom Homan to try to fix some things. And he just had problems with the city council holding him back. They're projecting to police officers, we don't like you. And police officers in local jurisdictions, they appreciate ICE. It takes a major part of their efforts off their hands with the help of ICE coming in to get rid of particularly these criminals, because the local police are having to deal with them too. So this sends a message to their local police. We screw you. We're going to stay down this path of hating the police and not giving you the resources you need. My dad, who owned about 103 fast food restaurants, used to always tell me his management principle, which was the job of a manager is not primarily to tell people what to do. It's to give people the tools they need to be successful. That was the job of a manager, in his opinion. I say the same thing with police department. They're telling these police departments, screw you, we're not giving you any tools to be able to get done what you need to do, because we stand for the criminal. That's the message they continue to put out. I don't think the American people accept it. And I think Donald Trump and Republicans in general need to keep calling it out for just that end.
They do, and it's going to create more chaos, because you have one side telling you that the police, what they're doing, they're Gestapo, they're wrong, they keep using that rhetoric. They're disappearing people off the street, like they're kidnapping people for no reason that are totally innocent. And the Democrats have done a great job. The liberal media has done a fantastic job of pushing the narrative that these are just immigrants, because they never ever, they don't even mention undocumented anymore. They've dropped that like a wet towel. It's just immigrants. These are immigrants. They don't use illegal. They don't use undocumented. And they're making it sound as if that ICE is coming in, and you got hardworking Americans that are getting snatched off the street in the middle of the night. And they're pushing that narrative, and it's sticking because every one of them parroted across liberal media, and it's not the truth.
Well, and Americans are getting jobs again. Let's think about this for a second. There's a lot of harm that illegal immigration brings into a society. Not just the criminals. That's obviously the worst and most acute harm, but there are a bunch of harm. So you're noticing that American citizens are getting jobs at clips higher than they have been for the last 4 years. Prior to Donald Trump, you had illegals getting jobs all over the place. We had Democrats and some Republicans always saying, well, they take the jobs that Americans won't take. Well, now the numbers prove that's not the case at all. They were taking jobs away from Americans. You've got money that is moving through the hands of illegals in this country, getting siphoned off in transfer dollars to other countries, particularly Mexico, from illegals and some legals, but mostly illegals that are sending money out of the country. I mean, that's a harm ultimately that comes here. So the benefit of illegal immigration just doesn't exist. Legal immigration has its problems right now too. We've got problems with the H-1B program, but if we weren't dealing with all these illegals and we had to deal with the H-1B program, we'd be in pretty darn good shape. That's not killing us as much as this. So that's the message that we need to be talking about. The harm is not just the crime. It is the siphoning away of the American economy to other countries, especially in the fraud side of it. Now that we know money's going to Boko Haram, a terrorist group in Somalia, for example, coming out of Minnesota. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So this needs to be addressed and continue to have this holistic message of the problem of illegal immigration.
It's out of control, and you're seeing so many of these people that have gotten licenses. They're driving trucks, but what's going on in Minnesota is total fraud that's been erupted up there. That thing is going to blow up a lot more than it is already. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people go down with that ship. It just seems inevitable. But it is to the point that where they have that narrative of these are just immigrants. That's all. This country was built by immigrants, and they've been able to just keep hammering that point, and they won't move off of it. And then they'll say, like, I think they'll put out a report, like a certain percentage of illegals or immigrants that were arrested weren't criminals. But in the same sense, every single one that came in the country illegal committed a crime. But they don't see it that way. They avoid that completely, and they'll never give that up. There's, as if it's, so what that they came into the country illegally? There's no crime in that. Yes, there is, but they've been good at pushing that narrative.
Well, there's a lot of equivocation that takes place in all political debates. One of them is America was built on immigrants. America wasn't built on immigrants. It was built on Americanized immigrants. Right. It was built upon immigration, or in part. I mean, it wasn't, maybe 20% of our population growth in the late 19th, early 20th century was immigration. But the immigrants that came in became radicalized Americans. They became radicalized constitutionalists who wanted America to be what it was. Who did, it's a good example, or an anecdotal one, is when you watch Casablanca, and there's that German couple that's talking about they're going to America, and they're spending all their time at the table talking about how they're Americanizing themselves. They want to talk about how they're going to say what time it is, what they're going to do when they get there. Like that was what immigrants did. They became American radicals. We do not have American radicals coming into this country right now.
You're right, Jim. And what they're trying to make it sound like is if this guy in Minnesota who can't speak English, who waves a Somalia flag, is just as equivalent to your grandmother who came here, learned the language, and started a business with pennies in her pocket. They want to make you believe that these are the same people, and they are not.
No, and particularly when it comes to Muslim immigration, there have been Muslim immigrants from Muslim countries who became radicalized Americans, by the way, but every Muslim immigrant from a Muslim country that promotes in any way or shape or form Sharia law, or promotes in any way, shape or form a socialist radical agenda, which that is the political agenda of the majority of the Muslim world, is socialist control over people. They don't call it socialism, but that's what it is. That's actually changing in the Middle East thanks to Donald Trump, because he's inspiring something different. But many of those people that came here, they didn't become radicalized Americans. They remained radicalized foreigners who injected themselves into this country. We need to demand for every green card holder that they either get radically Americanized or leave. And we need to tell every illegal that you're not allowed to be here, as we're doing, as Donald Trump is doing, that continued effort. And as people who are supporting Donald Trump's immigration policy, we need to be saying, yes, Tom Homan needs to keep emphasizing the criminal illegals and getting them out as quickly as possible. That's absolutely what we need to do. But the harms don't stop there. They're not as big a harms, but they are real harms. Jobs taken away, money getting siphoned out of the country. And then in some cases, even the non-criminal illegals are taking these welfare checks that they don't deserve. That's our money getting supporting their lifestyle. They need to learn to support their lifestyle elsewhere. This message needs to be very consistent in what we do with immigration. We don't hate immigrants. We love radicalized American immigrants. That's what we love.
Right, come here with the dream to take part in the American dream, the American experiment, and love this country. You pledge allegiance to this flag. We don't say, but not that long ago, Jim, the Democrats would say similar things. You have so many clips of like Hillary Clinton back then, Obama back then. Say, oh, you got to learn English, you got to speak English. If you've been here illegally, you got to pay a price, a fine. Back all of a sudden there was a radical shift where it was just like, oh no, everybody could come in, and it's not a crime. And it just doesn't make any sense why they made that shift, except for the fact that it's to help keep them in power, to help them with their districting, and to also, I don't know what the other point of it would be other than they have to benefit from it in some way.
Well, ever since JFK, beginning with LBJ and McGovern running against Richard Nixon back in the early 70s, the Democrats have become invasion of the body snatchers, right? They put up this patina of being pro-American sometimes, although they do it much less now. But, they would put up this idea of being about the American ideal and the American dream. But what they were really about is some third world country's ideal of a constructed cultural regime run by a centralized government. That's really what they've been about. JFK was a patriot. I mean, I disagreed with some of his policies, but the man loved America. He hated communism. He was suspicious of the CIA. All the things that we're
you want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. That we're at right now. And ever since him, Democrats are invasion of the body snatchers. They're shapeshifters. They're chameleons. So when you see them speaking out against immigration in the 1990s, they weren't speaking out against immigration. They were speaking up for their union constituents who were at the time they noticed losing jobs. Now, all that changed, and it's not as bad a problem. Things have become what they are, and they found out, oh, well, listen, here's what we can trade off. This is why the unions, by the way, are more for Donald Trump than for Democrats right now, is that they figured out, okay, well, forget the unions for now, that we're getting voters out of these illegal immigrants and even legal ones. So let's just focus on that because our gain is much greater politically. And so they've thrown unions across to the side. That's why the Teamsters didn't endorse anybody during this last election. Why you had the Teamster president speaking at Donald Trump's nomination party at the RNC convention, because they know they're being betrayed by Democrats, because they're shapeshifters, invasion of the body snatchers. It's not an American party. They do not press American ideals. And in fact, they press things that will destroy the American ideal. The illegal immigration, the 1619 Project, just write the list out. That's what they do. They don't do anything else but tear down this country.
And you're right, and it does seem like they dropped the black voter as well, because all of a sudden they can't. And I was saying, back then, it's like their concern is not to help the poor, struggling illegal immigrant. No. Their concern is to help them stay in power. That's it. I mean, that was what it was all about.
It's all about power grab. Listen, they believe in power. Now we need to understand the definition of government is legal force. Like, if the government's going to do anything, it has to have the force to uphold it. What we did in this country is reduce the scope of the areas where the government can assert any force, and only to those areas where it was necessary for them to do so. Now, Republicans and Democrats have strayed very far from those constitutional restraints, but that Constitution still exists, and we need to assert it. And we need to draw the government back and let people live their lives. This is the biggest challenge for Republicans. They have to have this attitude and idea that you are the one that will benefit if we get away from your back.
Yes.
And they don't tell that story very well, because they also look down at K Street for their future opportunities when they stop becoming members of Congress to get their $300,000 paycheck. But they also look down the street because that's where they get their the substance and the resource for them to stay in power. Republicans have got to break away from that, and until they do, until this message is clearly about we're doing this for you, and then actually follow through with legislation, then the American people are just going to go back and forth between Republican and Democrat the way they exist now.
Yeah, I agree, Jim. And last thing before I get you out of here, I know we've been on this, but I wanted to get your take on this Netflix Warner Brothers Discovery deal. Trump has weighed in on this a little bit, and it seems like it's going to be a total monopoly of liberal media. Netflix is way out of control. I mean, we always see the memes like, well, they'll have Netflix George Washington, and it's a black guy that plays them, or they'll make, they always throw the liberalism or the wokeness into everything they do. Now, going to have control of a much bigger media market with HBO involved and all this stuff, and especially the children's programming where everybody is gay or transgender, and they're going to continue to shove this stuff down our kids' throats. So what's your take on this deal that might go down here?
Well, generally, I'm not into politicians trying to skew what happens with these merger deals. But the reality is what Donald Trump is calling out here is not his desire to control everything. He's calling out a real threat. Reid Hoffman and Netflix. I mean, I don't know how many people watching you use Netflix. I stopped using Netflix years ago. That is the biggest trash heap of crap. And the stuff that's good and worth watching, even with all of Amazon's fault, I can go to Amazon Prime and I don't see nearly as much of this absolute filth and crap that gets promoted on Netflix. Reid Hoffman is un-American. This guy is absolutely crazy. I mean, he had a great idea and he built a great business model. And I have to give him credit for that. He just decided to turn it towards evil and not towards good. So I think that there's a real problem here. They know that they're losing their media monopoly. You see already in social media, Democrats complaining about the Ellison family, buying Paramount and CBS and all that. They're all ticked off about that, and they say Fox News and that, and now the conservatives dominate media, so they're making their play, and Donald Trump's calling it out. I agree with him calling it out. I'm not into government actors deciding how our economies run. But I do get where he's coming from, and we should shed a light on this. We do not want Reid Hoffman running a major portion of our media sources in this country. That's a real problem.
And it sucks because it's like you would want it to be just about the entertainment, storytelling, and stuff like that. But that's not what it is.
No.
It's a matter of propaganda and every single turn in every one of these productions that they do. And who has control of that? It's important now because it is political. That's what it is. They're pulling political messages even in the kids' cartoons that they're putting on now. So it's not like where it used to be, hey, we could just sit down and watch a Bugs Bunny cartoon, or we could laugh at the Roadrunner trying to catch the coyote trying to catch the road. That's not the case anymore. Now it's always like while you're watching that, there has to be a little kid who comes out of the closet wearing a dress. And it's like they're going to keep pumping it.
But I will say that we also do need to recognize that a large portion of our culture, not a majority portion, but a large enough one to bring revenue into the companies like Netflix, really do embrace many of these cultural norms that he's talking about. What's interesting is that since Joe Biden is off the stage and Kamala Harris lost, Donald Trump has done an excellent job of taking the government out of the cultural construct, deciding what culture will be, because we'll throw you in jail if you don't do it. Like they're doing in Europe right now, by the way. Right. People, and particularly in the UK, are going to jail for expressing an opinion against this kind of filthy, dirty crap. So it's, we have to have freedom even for filthy, dirty crap, because if we have that freedom, then we also have the freedom to change it to something much better. Listen, I'm telling you, I'm beginning to more radicalize in my discussions in media and elsewhere that we need to reassert a Christian ideal, a Judeo-Christian ideal in this country, because that foundation not only leads to a solid foundation for the rule of law, it also leads to an appropriate amount of shame and culture that says, listen, we want husbands and wives to form families and to have children because that's healthy for society. We need to have these kinds of messages replace these filthy ones that Reid Hoffman promotes. And the whole, listen, it's not like we need to pass laws against transgenders or against homosexuals or whatever. We need to have everyone live under the same law, and then those of good faith and of goodwill need to assert themselves boldly and courageously in culture to change what's going on. So I think Donald Trump's right to call out this deal, but we also need to recognize it's up to us to reassert through shame the proper kind of culture that truly did build this country well. We've never been a perfect nation. We've even had a decent amount of evil throughout our entire history. We've never had the kind of evil that mostly Democrats have fomented upon this country right now, utilizing government institutions to do it. They literally are breaking down culture in every way that they can, and we need to say, no mas. It's not going to happen anymore. And that would also be something we need to do while we're also calling out deals like this one.
I agree, Jim. Just like we see with PBS, NPR, same thing with they turned into complete Democrat propaganda machines and say, that's it. We're paying for it. We're paying for the propaganda. So, all right, listen, always love to have you on back down the line here. Jim Pfaff, Conservative Caucus. I got the link down there in the description below. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time today.
Alec, always great to be with you, my friend.
All right, grateful. Thank you to Jim Pfaff for joining me on the podcast here. Always appreciate his take. What you guys think about the interview? Get a comment down below. Got to cover a lot of ground there. It's definitely the whole Time Warner thing. The control of the media has been a big problem for conservatives, especially just for America. It's so many of these things on Netflix, they're anti-American. They hate America. They put those messages out there, and I want to play this because we were talking about the illegals and so much of it and how the narrative changed. I want to play this because I think it shows how the narrative on illegal immigration combined with that Hollywood entertainment message can do so much damage. And I want to play a clip here. Many of you have probably seen this movie, American History X, right, from like 1999, whatever it was. But listen to the messaging back then. Now, here's the thing. What Ed Norton, who plays the white nationalist or the neo-Nazi in the movie, what he says in this clip about illegal immigration is 1,000% true, word for word. Every single thing that he says in this little monologue here is 100% true. But what they do, you slap a swastika on them, you put the SS tattoos on them, and all of a sudden it's, oh, if you agree with this, you must be a Nazi, right? Here's this clip. Take a listen to what he says here. This is from back in 99. Okay, banger. That scene, what he says there is 1,000% right. What's the issue? Is they paint them as a Nazi. And all of the people that are around them are all little neo-Nazis, right? They got all the Nazi propaganda tattoos and everything like that. So the message is, if you agree with this rhetoric, you must be a Nazi, right? That's how they'll do it. They will prop out these people that are dressed up like little Hitlerites, and then they're going to say things that are true, and if you agree with them, that means you're a Nazi. So this stuff goes on in our entertainment industry. That's the purpose of stuff like that. That's pure propaganda, what they're doing there. And we're seeing that now on a massive scale. Again, that's 30-something years ago, whatever it is. It's on a massive scale right now. So that everything that is right and good, you paint a Nazi on it, and now this is the issue. Like you see, I talked about Nick Fuentes earlier. You see the rise of Nick Fuentes. So now, if you have, they're gonna paint him out as this person, so that if he says things, which he does say a lot of things that do make sense, if you agree with one of the things he says, oh, now you're just like Nick Fuentes. Oh, you're just like this Nazi guy, and that's the whole idea. And we're seeing it through movies and entertainment more than anywhere, anytime. And so people that have these ideas, they paint. That's why MAGA and racist, fascist, all this stuff. And it's a bad idea to have a liberal lunatic or a Democrat in charge of so much of what is going to be put out on our airwaves. And it's crazy. It really is. That's why so many. But you have the ability to abandon it. They had the boycott. A lot of people jumped off their Netflix subscriptions because of what was going on with the trans stuff. Like I said, with the kids programs, it's brutal. I mean, it is brutal, and the left has control of that industry for decades. I mean, everybody that gets up at the Academy Awards, everybody is up there, and all of a sudden they talk about guns. They're anti-gun, or they're for illegal immigrants. It's like the same messages at every Oscars. The whole town is left wing. Anyway. What's your thoughts on that? The last thing there is sad is that it does not look good for Tina Peters here, man. I mean, the judge there says that she's going to have to serve this full 9-year term. What an absolute sin and tragic circumstance that's happening out there to Tina Peters. Again, her son, Remington Peters, was a Navy SEAL who died. It's just, she stood up for the rigged election. Was going into the machines to show how this whole thing was being rigged, and this crazy left-wing state of Arizona there has done her a complete injustice. This justice system, I should say, left-wing, has done her a disservice, and of course it's on the state level. Trump can't pardon her. I was hoping that there'd be some kind of way that he could pull her as a federal witness or something like that, and maybe there'd be some kind of workaround, but it doesn't look more and more like that's possible. He's called for her release. He's been all over that. It's very sad to see what has happened there with Tina Peters. I pray for her and her family, and that something happens to get her the hell out of there. But what a talk about a political persecution. What a political prisoner Tina Peters is. A true American who lost her son, who served this country honorably, and she is being treated just terrible. So anyway, there's a lot of other stuff that I didn't get to today. I'm going to get to on Thursday. I'm working on bringing a guest onto the show here. So make sure you follow me on X at Alec Lace. Again, if you missed out on my interviews from the congressman last week, I was down there in D.C. on Capitol Hill interviewing about 8 congressmen or so, talking about how imperative it is right now that we got to try to focus, get behind Trump's agenda. We got the clock running out. You know the story. We got a year to go here. If we don't hit these midterms, we're finished. Trump's agenda will be stalled. And look at all of his appointments. I mean, the Republicans in the House, yes, the Democrats we know suck, but so many of these Republicans haven't done nothing. And they keep saying they're going to do stuff. They never do, and it's very frustrating to watch. It just feels like Groundhog Day every day when you talk about some of the politics that are going on in Washington, D.C. So praying for a miracle, and that's what I got here for you guys today. All right, God bless you, parents and you listeners out there. God bless our police, our first responders. God bless our military, our veterans. God bless America, and I'll be back here on Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
You're listening to the